Well, good afternoon, opera folk. I'm glad to be back with you on public radio. And today we're talking about Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. And I think there are times in life when you're handed a sign, an omen, that maybe you're doing the right thing, maybe you've found the right job, maybe things are going the way they're supposed to. One of the questions I often get from opera lovers is, Glenn, do you have a favorite opera? What's your favorite opera? And I actually do have an answer to that question. I've got two operas which are virtually tied for being my favorites. One is The Marriage of Figaro, and the other is Verdi's Falstaff. And looky at the Virginia Opera schedule. We're closing out this main stage season with Figaro and opening the 2013-2014 season with Falstaff. My two favorite operas back to back. I think that's a sign, don't you? I'm sure you agree. Well, anyway, let's delve right into Marriage of Figaro, and we're going to start with the overture. And opera fans, I often in these broadcasts, I often skip right over the overture because I want to get to the good stuff, to a lot of the vocal highlights. But when it comes to Mozart's Marriage of Figaro, we cannot skip the overture. It's not only one of the great overtures, it's one of the great classical orchestral works. And there's a lot of psychology in it, a lot of what I would call a little thumbnail summary of some of the themes that we'll find in this masterpiece of an opera. And just to set the stage for these excerpts from the overture, I think I know the demographic of this audience pretty well. If you're a member of public radio in Hampton Roads, WHRO, and we certainly hope you are, the odds are good that you are also a member of public TV, and there's a certain drama that we're all waiting for the next season of with bated breath, about a certain family in England, and I'm talking about Downton Abbey. Raise your hand if you're a devoted fan of Downton Abbey. Oh, look at all those hands go up. My goodness. I can see them right over the microphone. Well, if you like Downton Abbey, and you're not sure if you will like The Marriage of Figaro, rest assured, they're the same thing. There's nothing innovative or startlingly original about Downton Abbey. I hate to tell you that. In the 1970s, we had Upstairs, Downstairs, virtually the same story. Really, this story is as old as storytelling. What is The Marriage of Figaro about when you look at its base? It's about the lower classes interacting with the aristocratic upper classes, the privileged class, in the context of living together in a large, wealthy household. Well, actually, that's what Downton Abbey is about, isn't it? And a lot of the characters are very much the same. I won't take the time to go through a side-by-side comparison. You can look on the opera website, vaopera.org, and find a blog that I've written on this subject of comparing the Lady Grantham and Lord Grantham characters to the Count and Countess and so forth. But let's say this. Everybody in Downton Abbey has secrets. There's a lot of whispered plots and conspiracies and a lot of eavesdropping and overhearing of conversations, and that is absolutely a feature of every single character in The Marriage of Figaro. Lots of whispered plots and schemes and secrets that are kept and then blabbed about. And I think Mozart is indicating this at the very beginning of the overture. You hear whispering, scurrying strings that represent people going about their secret business and bringing all of their secret agendas to bear on the other members of the household. And then you'll hear some loud explosions in the orchestra, because in the end, secrets get revealed, don't they? Now, let's leap ahead a little bit to the second theme of this overture, which is in a kind of a rough sonata form. There are two characters amongst the large cast of Figaro, which I think correspond to Mr. Bates and Anna from Downton Abbey. And that would be Figaro and Susanna. Of course, Figaro is the favorite manservant of the Count, his chosen valet, just as Mr. Bates is for Lord Grantham. And Mr. Bates marries one of the servant staff, just as Figaro is doing with Susanna. And just as is the case with Downton, we like Figaro and Susanna. They are kind of the center of gravity for the story of Marriage of Figaro. They're the ones that we root for. We understand that they're well-adjusted personalities. He's a good guy. She's a really great gal. They're going to be happy together. They're the most well-adjusted personalities in the opera. And I think that in the middle of the overture, we meet them. We're going to hear a little theme that is played by the lower instruments of the orchestra. You'll hear a bassoon. That's Figaro saying, "Hello there." And then the theme is repeated, adding the flute to give it a higher timbre. And that's Susanna making her little curtsy. So you've met the Figaros. And then you hear some of these loud explosions, and that's the Count fuming with anger and resentment that he can't have that beautiful chambermaid. Now, let's skip to the very end of this wonderful overture, the coda. And here, I think, is the first glimmer that we get of one of the major themes of this opera. Mozart's Marriage of Figaro is a complex work that reaches us on many levels and means many things. It has a lot to teach us. And one of these lessons is about, again, going back to Downton Abbey, the nature of the lower classes interacting with the upper classes. Well, Marriage of Figaro was written in 1786, just on the brink of that little event that we call the French Revolution. So it's a very big theme about the upper classes being brought back to earth and being humbled by the lower classes. And, of course, that is personified in Figaro by the antagonism between Figaro and his boss, the Count. And I find throughout the opera a number of musical examples which seem to me to have the character of a duel, thrust and parry. For instance, in the coda of this overture, I want you to listen to a couple of motives that you hear. First, there's the Count, who has a downward motive, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, and that's the thrust as he's trying to squish Figaro down under his thumb. But then Figaro parries that thrust with an upward motive, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. It's King Kong versus T-Rex in the overture to this opera. And before our time is up today, we'll hear a couple of other examples of this thrust and parry. In a sense, then, the entire opera is an allegory for all the hot-button political issues of the day, which were soon to erupt in the French Revolution. Now, I'm actually going to take a few minutes to go over a very slight musical number. You know, there are so many immortal, famous standard pieces, so many great arias and ensembles that are immortal in this opera that it's easy to overlook some of the little moments. But beware, those little moments can really be just bursting over with insight and significance. Take the first number. It's an apparently know-nothing little trifle of a duet for Figaro and Susanna. The curtain goes up. They're in the apartment that they're going to be living in after their wedding this very day. They're about to redecorate. There are drop cloths over the chairs and so forth. And Figaro is measuring a large space against the wall for a bed that I think he's going to build for their marriage bed. And not much happens. He starts counting cinque, dieci. He's measuring out, I don't know, feet, inches, meters, whatever they used back in Seville in those days. And Susanna is trying on a little hat. And she thinks she looks very pretty in this hat. And she tries to get Figaro to turn around and pay attention to her and tell her that she looks pretty in her little bonnet. And he's immersed in his work, counting out these paces, until finally she keeps at it. She gets him to turn around, and he says what she wants him to say. Yes, you look adorable in your little hat. And that's it. So not much happens. Why am I going to take time with it? Because this little duet crystallizes another important theme of the opera that we'll see run. It's a thumbnail of a very important lesson that Mozart and his librettist Da Ponte want to teach us, which is that men are improved and made smarter by their women. It's that old saying, behind every great man, blah, 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 you know the rest. Well, here's how I view this little duet. When we first hear from Figaro, he is counting out in slow quarter notes. Bum, 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 ba, bum, bum, and so forth. Then when Susanna enters, the pace doubles. Her notes are, her vocal line is in flowing eighth notes, twice as fast. Dee-da, 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 and so forth. Take a listen, and you'll see what I mean. So what does that mean? What is Mozart telling us? He's telling us that Susanna is twice as quick as Figaro. And I mean mentally. She is twice as quick to catch on to things, to read people, to read situations. It's not that Figaro is a dummy, not at all. But he's a little slower to catch on to things sometimes. Susanna is the one who's always teaching him. And we'll see that in the next duet, in which she has to point out the sordid implications of the fact that their apartment is right next to the Count's bedroom, because the Count, she understands, whereas Figaro is naively, blissfully ignorant, that the Count intends to seduce Susanna sometime during this very day. So now, when she first tries to get Figaro to pay attention to her, she slows down her pace from those flowing eighth notes to quarter notes, just like his. Sounds like this. So what just happened there? Susanna slowed down, and I said that slowness is Mozart's code for mental slowness here. Did she just lose intelligence? Is living with Figaro dumbing her down, so to speak? No, not at all. Actually, this is Mozart's clue that these two people are going to have a happy marriage, because, as any marriage counselor will tell you, the key to a happy marriage is communication skills. When Susanna turned around and started addressing her fiancé, her bridegroom, she adopted his language. She's talking to him at his level. She's using a style of communication that is his, that he can understand. That's great. And, you know, he's going to do the same thing, because when he finally turns around and pays her the compliment and says, yes, you're a living doll in that little hat, look what happens to his note values. Well, how about that? He got twice as fast. Two things are happening there. Number one, he's also being a flexible, empathetic communicator. He's adopting her language. But you know what also happened? He's going to keep singing at that pace for the rest of the number, which means basically in Mozart's concept here that he has gotten smarter, that Susanna has made him smarter. And as I said before, that will be borne out by the following dialogue in the next little duet, in which his eyes are opened as to the manner in which the Count is betraying him by going after his bride. Quite a bit of psychology in a 2-minute duet, I must say. Well, once he figures it out, once the light bulb goes on in the balloon over Figaro's head, now he's pretty angry, and he sings one of the more famous arias. Figaro's a great role. He's got 3 fantastic arias, which again is more than any other character. It gives us a clue that he really is the center of gravity for this show. And this one is the Se vuol ballare. He's quite disturbed that the Count, who was his best bud back in the prequel, The Barber of Seville, is now betraying him in this sordid manner. So he's going to sing about how he's going to put a stop to that. Well, I love it when arias, when pieces of music have layers of meaning. And this is very subtle because this famous aria has 2 meanings. Number one, it's a comic aria because there's something about Figaro's rage in contrast to how slow he was to understand the problem that makes him seem a little bit like Elmer Fudd, I always think. When Elmer Fudd gets fooled by the wabbit and turns red in the face with steam coming out of his ears, this has a lot of comic rapid patter as Figaro explodes with this comic rage. But on the other hand, friends, there is nothing funny about it. There is a very serious undertone because, you know, it's amazing that this aria got past the censors. And what you have is a member of the common class vowing to bring down the ruling governor of the land, the big aristocrat in all of Seville. This was inflammatory stuff in 1786. And I think the fact that the playwright who wrote the play, which the opera is adapted, Beaumarchais, he was the one who fought all the battles with the censors. So Mozart benefited from his adversities and travails. They let it go by. But this aria could have been a theme song, a campaign song for the French Revolution. He sings Se vuol ballare, signor Contino. If you want to dance, Mr. County Wounty, il chitarrino le suonerò. I'll play the tune.
Se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerà. Il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerà. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola, la capriola le insegnerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola, la capriola le insegnerò, sì, le insegnerò, sì, le insegnerò. Saprò, 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 a piano.
Oh, he's just fuming with rage. Saprò, saprò, I know how to do it. I know how to bring you down. You'll see. Well, so far we've seen 2 of the big themes of this opera, 2 of the lessons that Mozart wants to teach us. That whole French Revolution thing, and then, of course, the business from that first duet that men are made smarter by the women in their lives. And now we're going to get another one because we're going to meet that teenage wunderkind, that barrel of trouble, that thorn in the side of Count Almaviva, Cherubino, the page boy. He's just come through puberty. He's got raging hormones. All he can think of is girls, how they look, how they smell, how they feel, just 24/7. He's thinking about the female sex. Which brings us to lesson number 3. This opera is a virtual encyclopedia of the human affect, the human emotion of love. Now, look, most operas have love stories. There's always a touching love duet somewhere, like in Madame Butterfly. But this is different. If you take a look at all the characters and how they interact with each other, you can find virtually every aspect of whatever it is that we think of as human love. That's a broad word that means many things. Figaro and Susanna, well-adjusted, healthy marital love. The Count and the Countess, disaffected. They're going through a rough patch, dysfunctional love. There's going to be the lust of the Count for all the women. And Carabino is an example of puppy love, that immature love. Oh, we're going to have parental love. It's a dissertation on the subject of love. And here is that famous aria, Non so più, which heaves and surges with boiling teenage boy hormones.